This is the Sustainability Podcast hosted by David Daoud of Compliance Standards LLC, an analyst firm that tracks various segments of a sustainable IT. This podcast is dedicated to discussing all things related to electronics recycling, data security, the environment, ESG, product design, and much more. To find out more about the podcast, how to subscribe, and where to listen, visit compliancestandards.com/podcast. Happy listening.
This is David Daoud of Compliance Standards with my first impressions on Iron Mountain acquiring Irish ITAD firm Wisetek. Today is the 30th of September 2024, and welcome to this brief chat. So the recent news stories about Iron Mountain acquiring Irish firm Wisetek has created a head-scratching moment. I say news because I have not seen any formal communications from the companies or by Wisetek itself. The news was reported by the Irish Examiner. eScrap News reported it, and even an obscure French-language news website called Nouvelles du Monde. And so as I spoke to a number of executives in the ITAD space, the general comment has been, are we seeing another Arrow in the making? Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Arrow, well, Arrow Electronics is a rather huge technology marketer which got involved heavily in the IT asset disposition sector starting about 2009, when the financial crisis put many good firms out of business and up for sale at what we consider low prices. Arrow's general thinking about getting involved in the ITAD sector made sense, though perhaps it was premature from a timeline perspective. It made sense because they thought by capturing sort of the end of life, they would offer end-to-end solutions to their enterprise clients and therefore keep them under the Arrow umbrella for all their IT spending. So Arrow went on an acquisition spree, but ended up struggling integrating the half dozen or so companies it acquired. Their reasoning, that is keeping their client within a closed-loop sales model, was a premature idea, I think. It would have made more sense today as companies are beginning to understand the concept of a circular economy. So Arrow went on to refocus on its core business of selling new technology and advanced services, and essentially withdrawing from ITAD after several hundreds of millions of dollars in acquisition and integration investments. Now, another company that followed Arrow's footsteps, albeit at a more controlled pace and with a lesser scope, was Ingram Micro, also a major technology distributor. Ingram is still an active player in ITAD and is well respected, but over the past months, we have not seen them as active as they used to be. And that, of course, raises questions about the health of Ingram's ITAD operations. So it's normal that when the news of Iron Mountain acquiring Wisetek hit the three websites mentioned earlier, industry executives in the sector started questioning the wisdom of such a move that Iron Mountain is making. Admittedly, I was one of those who began to predict uncertainty for Iron Mountain. However, it would be naive to believe that purchasing three ITAD-related entities in itself could spell doom. Firstly, Iron Mountain likely analyzed with hindsight how Arrow and Ingram Micro's acquisitions and integration process went. It's likely that many former ITAD employees of these two companies are employed by Iron Mountain, and so there is certainly a treasure trove of information to analyze and learn from, and that could help, obviously, Iron Mountain avoid some of the mistakes and pitfalls that were made several years ago. But fundamentally, though, Iron Mountain has its work cut out in the coming months. Its three acquisitions certainly have many synergies and assets that Iron Mountain can leverage and will leverage and make a real return on its acquisition investments. But there's also a real need for reorganizing and streamlining. Firstly, the three companies, that is Wisetek, Regency Technologies, and IT Renew, offer about the same types of ITAD services. That obviously includes secure disposal, recycling and repurposing of end-of-life IT equipment, generally for corporate and enterprise clients. Obviously, to achieve that, they must also offer data sanitization and destruction services, and of course, guarantee compliance with data security regulations. These similarities of their sort of what I would call core ITAD service models could be redundancies or seen as redundancies that the acquiring company, that is Iron Mountain, may have to address to achieve at least two things. First, avoid customer confusion, and secondly, achieve efficiencies. I sense, though, that Iron Mountain has the technical capabilities and the skills to achieve optimum integration. After all, the M&A and integration process are generally overseen by the company's CFO. This means that whatever outcome of these integrations, it has to align with the company's financial objectives, something that was probably missed by Aero when it tried to consolidate. Two critical themes that these companies have in common are sustainability and the circular economy theme, included virtually in all of their go-to-market strategies as part of their value proposition. This is not necessarily a redundancy problem, but one that requires a better refining of the go-to-market message. Existing and prospective clients could easily spot overlaps in their messaging and in the service offerings, and that needs to be certainly addressed. Geographically, Wisetek and IT Renew both have some global operations with a significant presence in what is the key market, which is the US market. Regency Technologies operate primarily in the US, even though it also caters to global clients. The map that you see here shows where the three entities now under the Iron Mountain umbrella tend to operate. Although there is an emphasis on global presence in the messaging, the higher concentration of sites outside the US is that of Wisetek in the United Kingdom, in addition to Thailand and the United Arab Emirates. Looking at the map, there is still underrepresentation in mainland Europe, for example, and the broad sort of Asia-Pacific region. There is also lack of presence in Latin America, markets that we all know that could be critical in the company's future. As such, it would make sense for Iron Mountain to take a look at these geographies going forward where its ITAD units do not have a direct presence, although they certainly operate through partnerships. Where some potential site consolidation can take place is obviously in the United States, where the three entities have at least 13 or 14 facilities combined, and that is as far as we can track. All three companies serve a wide range of industries, including the ones that are sensitive to regulatory requirements and compliance, such as healthcare, finance, government, and technology. The potential challenge facing Iron Mountain is to optimize and streamline the same service offerings across these companies in terms of geographical coverage and the ability to support large-scale ITAD projects. Now, one function to reorganize or revisit is the sales organization, as we assume that Iron Mountain will have one unified sales force. The last thing a client would want to experience is meeting salesmen from three different companies or entities with different messages. Operationally, each of the three companies has a specific strength. IT Renew has a strong focus on data center decommissioning and remarketing servers and components originating from hyperscale data centers. Wisetek offers a broad spectrum of services from mobile phone to data center equipment, positioning itself similarly to IT Renew in this area. Both companies offer end-to-end solutions for data centers. They do include, secure destruction and resale of components. The strengths of these companies could be considered overlaps that may be seen by some clients and that their parent company will have to eventually address during the integration phase. This may not concern Regency Technologies, as the latter is not as active in the data center world. Generally, it is the case that IT Renew is more known for its expertise on high-end servers and data center equipment, while Wisetek and Regency Technologies cover sort of a broader range of equipment from enterprise class IT and all the way down to consumer electronics. From a client segmentation perspective, all three companies cater to large enterprises, public sector entities, and technology firms. Those are clients that Iron Mountain has traditionally served in its core business. While each company has a slightly different market focus, the profile of their core client base is largely the same. Yet Iron Mountain is clearly seeing areas of synergies, providing an opportunity to leverage unique areas of strengths each of the acquired companies brings. For example, as ITRenew is highly specialized in hyperscale data center decommissioning, this will provide an opportunity for the other two companies to market ITRenew services. Wisetek has been more vocal about its circular economy model, integrating reuse, refurbishment, and manufacturing services with a global reach. Regency Technologies, which focuses primarily on the US, could leverage Wisetek's non-US network to extend services to multinational clients. So there are many other areas that each company brings to the table, but I'd like to note that Iron Mountain is likely to benefit greatly from Wisetek's partnerships with leading OEMs. Just taking the broad ITAD sector, OEMs have substantial ties to enterprise clients through services agreements, for example. Leasing, financing deals are very important for these companies. Almost half of US enterprises have agreements with the likes of Dell, HP, Lenovo, and many others on equipment decommissioning. And with Wisetek partnerships with these OEMs, Iron Mountain certainly sees an opportunity to potentially expand into the broader enterprise market to service not only the OEMs themselves and their clients, but to also offer what are sort of the core businesses that are part of Iron Mountain. In this context, Wisetek already serves Dell Technologies in ITAD and recycling and refurbishment services. It is also an authorized recycler and refurbishment partner for Apple. It works with Microsoft to manage ITAD and enterprise hardware, including data center decommissioning and refurbishment of devices like Surface products. With HP, we note a partnership to support that OEM recycling and refurbishment services. And that is clearly the same with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, or HPE, with focus on enterprise hardware, including servers and data center equipment. So what should we expect from this acquisition? Well, there is certainly a timing component to this purchase. As 2024 winds down, all eyes are on 2025, where a series of events are expected to affect global IT, technology projects, and related spending. The combined impact of a continued shift to Windows 11 and the advent of the AI PC promise a refresh cycle that could represent a boon for ITAD companies that are well prepared to accompany clients in undergoing infrastructure transformation in the many years to come. The opportunity is not only on the device side, but a bigger catalyst in ongoing IT spending is the data center and related technologies, which will benefit from the injection of AI for a wholesale upgrade. Another factor to watch, first in Europe, are the large companies that will have to contend with CSRD and its requirements, which will also impact virtually all US companies operating in the European Union. Smaller companies will also follow the same path starting 2026. For large companies, CSRD will enter its phase of mandatory reporting on ESG in 2025, following a 2024 data gathering period. Now, as companies are forced to respond to new regulatory requirements, active and savvy ITAD firms in Europe should be able to articulate a value proposition not only on data security, but also on environmental issues in line with clients' CSRD obligations. But as I see it, environmental concerns that have always been highlighted by ITAD companies are only beginning to affect corporate attitude under regulatory pressure and, to a lesser extent, under consumer pressure. And while up to now, most companies have had verbal commitments to improving their environmental impact, it's only very recently that they began to take concrete steps to reduce their environmental footprint. ITAD companies that are closely monitoring this movement and making the proper adjustment should be able to put forward offerings that clients would absolutely leverage in documenting and communicating their environmental achievements and gains. With new assets in Europe, Iron Mountains is clearly positioning itself to capture part of the market where ITAD intersects with mandatory environmental reporting. Another potential catalyst to growth in 2025 could be the measures taken by the United States and China to improve their respective economies. In the US, regulators are adjusting interest rates to stimulate more business and consumption activity. And while the US is in the midst of an election cycle, there's a general sense that the economy will eventually stabilize post-presidential election, regardless of who will be chosen to be in the White House. In China, the government has announced a series of stimulus measures to address the weakness of the country's economy due to the crumbling real estate sector and the challenges facing the export sector. As the second largest economy in the world, changes in China's economy are bound to affect the performance of the entire world economy and the ITAD sector as well. A new stimulus package was announced last week that includes, for example, lowering mortgage rates and cutting the reserve requirement ratio for banks. All of that aimed at injecting sort of liquidity into the economy and providing relief to the struggling property market. Now, economists do not always agree on how effective such measure will be, but decisions are being made that can improve China's contribution to the global economy. Now, all of these big macro events are likely weighing on the minds of Iron Mountain's senior team and are clearly impacting their decisions to invest in acquiring new assets to address the above drivers and the inhibitors as well to growth in 2025 and beyond. As such, I do not rule out more acquisitions coming out of Iron Mountain next year. The map that I showed a moment ago shows that outside the US and the UK, the company has a lot more places to go. And with that, thank you for listening. And until our next talk, goodbye.
You just listened to an episode of the Sustainability Podcast, hosted by David Daoud of Compliance Standards LLC. Send us your feedback at inquiries@compliance-standards.com. More details on this podcast can be found at compliancestandards.com/podcast.